Greetings, fellow cultivators. Welcome to Autonova. Remember to like and subscribe to support the journey. Now, let's dive into the next chapter of A Will Eternal. The fact that an elder from the Kai clan had gone missing didn't cause a huge commotion. The Kai clan didn't even seem to have noticed, and also didn't look into the matter very deeply. It was the same in Giant Ghost City, where life went on like it usually did. The Giant Ghost King didn't do anything out of the ordinary either. In fact, to anyone who wasn't aware of the events which had just played out, it would seem as if nothing at all had happened. However, it was very different among the people who were in the know. To them, it seemed like a storm of disaster was brewing. The people in Devil Penitentiary who had heard the Kai clan elder's confession were all very nervous, and didn't dare to discuss the matter. They merely waited to see what would happen next. It's been a whole month, Bai Xiaochun thought. Why hasn't the fighting started yet? He had been paying very close attention to the situation, and yet, even after an entire month, neither the three great clans nor the Giant Ghost King had made a move. Even if the Kai clan wasn't originally aware that one of their elders was captured, they would definitely have found out by now. They must know that he's revealed the information about the rebellion. But they haven't made a move. And the Giant Ghost King hasn't said a peep. Could it be that they're still feeling each other out? He scratched his head in befuddlement, and couldn't help but feel a bit of disdain for the Giant Ghost King. There can't be many demigods this lame. If I were a demigod, I would just go wipe out all three of the great clans. That would take care of the problem. And as for the three great clans, either they're not fully prepared, or they're hesitating. Well, regardless of which it is, this is a good opportunity for me. With that, he checked his bag of holding to see how many souls he had left from when he had robbed the Kai clan's soul grounds. After performing 14-fold spirit enhancements on all of his magical items, he had been left with a bit less than half the original amount. Later, he had done some experimentation with 15-colored flame, which left him running very low. Out already. Conjuring flame really is a big waste of souls. He narrowed his eyes in thought for a moment, then nodded his head. I have to take some risks sometimes. I'll just go check the situation out. If the chance presents itself, I'll take some souls. If not, then I won't worry about it. Feeling both nervous and excited, he thought a bit more, then rose to his feet. Devil Penitentiary was on lockdown, but Bai Xiaochun was now the #1 Dark Inquisitor, and was also the one who had dug up the critical intelligence to begin with. Clearly, he was not on the side of the three great clans, and therefore, Li Shu approved his request to leave the prison. Before long, Bai Xiaochun was in disguise, and heading through the moat toward the city. The moat wasn't very large, but nevertheless, Bai Xiaochun found a place where he could leave it without attracting attention. Soon, he was outside of Giant Ghost City. It's too bad I have to be very careful about revealing my ability to disguise my appearance. It really leaves me no choice other than to use ordinary disguises. He was currently wearing a wide-brimmed hat, and some extra layers of clothing to make him look bigger. Keeping his head down, he headed away from Giant Ghost City, and in the direction of the Chen clan. I already robbed the Kai clan, so they'll definitely be on guard. The Bai clan has too few souls to make it worth my time. The Chen clan is the only option. Eyes flashing, he flew quickly to the location where the Chen clan stood. Arrayed in different locations around the clan were 8 soul grounds. The mere sight of the vast number of vengeful souls flying around the floating, beehive-like structures in the soul grounds caused Bai Xiaochun to swallow in anticipation. After sizing the situation up, he murmured, the Chen clan really has a lot of souls. Unfortunately, the soul grounds were all very close to the clan itself, and also very tightly guarded. Despite the speed he was capable of, he was fairly sure that as soon as he did the deed, he would be discovered. The Chen clan is really too stingy. They're just some measly soul grounds, right? What's the point in guarding them so heavily? The feeling that came from being able to look at something and not touch it really left him disgruntled. They're just some souls, right? I can't believe these super rich clans are so stingy. What bullies. Sighing, he decided that the opportunity he had been hoping for had not been presented. Depressed, he headed back to Giant Ghost City. Just when he was about to enter the city and head toward Devil Penitentiary, his eyes widened as he saw a figure speed out of the giant ghost statue and head in his general direction. Despite the great distance involved, considering the level of his cultivation base, Bai Xiaochun was easily able to determine that he was looking at Duke Deathcrier. Furthermore, he appeared to be heading in the direction of the Bai clan. Considering that Duke Deathcrier was a diva, and that he wasn't attempting to conceal his actions, it meant that Bai Xiaochun wasn't the only one who could see him. Quite a few people noticed, and many of them began to ponder the significance of what they were seeing. What? Bai Xiaochun said, blinking. Why would Duke Deathcrier be going to visit the Bai clan at a sensitive time like this? Although Bai Xiaochun was surprised, he didn't put too much thought into it and continued on his way. It was getting dark, but the streets in the city were still crowded. At a certain point when he was only about halfway to the moat, a brilliant light suddenly began to shine from the giant ghost statue. As the light shone out from the royal palace on the head of the statue, a person appeared. He was tall and strong, and wore a violet robe with a serpentine dragon embroidered on it. He had a royal crown on his head, and emanated a heaven-shaking, earth-shattering energy. Even as he hovered there, he exuded pressure that could stifle everything in heaven and earth. Then he began to stride through the air above the city, almost as if he were going on patrol. The giant ghost king. It's His Highness the King. Greetings, Your Highness. Quite a racket could be heard as countless soul cultivators dropped to their knees to kowtow. As for the city guards on patrol, they reacted in a similar manner. The giant ghost king looked completely calm as he strode silently through the air. Thunder rumbled, and the clouds churned. It was even possible to see lightning dancing about. All of these heavenly portents struck fear into the heart of the people below. Even more shocking was the enormous shadowy figure which walked along behind the giant ghost king, a figure which seemed so powerful that if it fully formed, it could rip heaven and earth to shreds. Bai Xiaochun's aura was in chaos. This was his first time seeing the giant ghost king, and the shocking energy that the man emanated left him deeply shaken. Did the giant ghost king leave his palace to try to threaten the three great clans? Bai Xiaochun swallowed hard as he observed the terrifying figure up above. As he did, he heard a voice that he hadn't heard for a long time. Fudge, what's that smell? It seems very familiar to Lord Turtle. Smells like treasure. Along with the voice, a head popped out of Bai Xiaochun's bag of holding. It was the little turtle who had been missing for so long. No matter how Bai Xiaochun had ransacked his bag of holding, he had never been able to find him, not even in the hiding place he'd discovered the time he had rendered the little turtle unconscious. On many occasions, Bai Xiaochun had even come to the conclusion that the sharp-tongued little turtle must have left. Although that thought had left him somewhat relieved, he was also disappointed at the loss of the turtle. Who would have ever imagined that the turtle would suddenly show up at this time? Jaw-dropping, he looked down at the turtle, whose eyes were gleaming as surely as if he had spotted a valuable treasure. In fact, Bai Xiaochun was fairly certain that he was actually drooling. Why, you're still here? Bai Xiaochun was actually delighted. He had long since come to feel very alone out in the wildlands, so to have the little turtle with him was a great thing. The little turtle stuck his head up proudly and gave a disdainful glance at Bai Xiaochun. Lord Turtle was just sleeping for a bit. So what? Did ya miss me, fool? Well, even if you did, it doesn't matter. In fact, don't even talk to me. I'm germophobic. To hear such stinging words immediately took Bai Xiaochun's delight at meeting an old friend and transformed it into anger. Shut up, he said. Ignoring the little turtle, he looked back up at the giant ghost king for a bit. Then he shoved the little turtle's head back into his bag of holding and flew back into the moat, and beyond it, Devil Penitentiary. Around that time, the Bai clan diva patriarch was in a grand hall in the Bai clan, looking grim-faced at Duke Deathcrier. Gritting his teeth angrily, the patriarch said, I'm not even going to mention how many years I've loyally served His Highness the King. We've fought side by side on the field of battle, and I've never been anything but devoted. Besides, considering the level of my cultivation base, how could I ever fight the king? Do you think I'm crazy or something? Why would I lead the Bai clan into a rebellion? This is complete nonsense. If you want to falsely accuse me, at least come up with a good excuse. Glaring, the patriarch continued, by the way, regarding what happened with that unfilial bastard of my clan, I respected His Highness the King's wishes because of face. That's the only reason I didn't pursue the matter at the time. However, based on some of the rumors that have been floating around about him, I have to ask you, Duke Deathcrier. What is the meaning of the situation? Duke Deathcrier sighed inwardly. Because he was a close follower of the giant ghost king, he was privy to a few secrets that no one else knew. Furthermore, he was able to speculate at what the king was thinking. However, he still couldn't figure out why he had been asked to go to all three of the great clans and directly ask the patriarchs if they were planning a rebellion. In fact, the giant ghost king had even hinted that he should offer concessions to the three great clans to keep the peace. Duke Deathcrier was very nervous about the whole thing. Sighing again in his heart, he looked at the Bai clan patriarch and thought, is he trying to trick the enemy into thinking he's weak, and lure them out of their strongholds? Or has he really reached the decay period? Looking the Bai clan patriarch in the eye, he said, Brother Bai, if His Highness the King really believed the rumors, he wouldn't send me to you like this. As for the situation with Bai Hao, I understand your frustration. In that case, Brother Deathcrier, the patriarch growled, I'd like to make a request. Please tell His Highness the King that that unfilial bastard isn't suited to be a guard in Devil Penitentiary. The truth was that the patriarch was taking advantage of this situation to see if the giant ghost king really was as clueless as he was acting. After all, the three great clans weren't quite ready to make their move. No one could possibly guess what the giant ghost king was actually thinking. It really did seem like a situation of putting on a weak front in order to lure the enemies out of their strongholds. However, in other ways, it actually looked like he was trying to reach a compromise. The more one was privy to the behind-the-scenes information, the more confusing things became. After all, the giant ghost king was a demigod, a fact that put a lot of pressure on the three great clans. Duke Deathcrier's trip to visit the three diva patriarchs cast suspicion into all of their hearts. However, each and every one of them made various demands, all of which seemed excessive in some way. They had done so intentionally, of course. In some ways, such demands would make it seem like they weren't interested in rebelling. For example, if the Bai clan was planning a rebellion, they would intend to win it, and would therefore be confident in being able to take care of Bai Hao on their own. They wouldn't need the giant ghost king to do it for them. However, not even the Bai clan patriarch could ever have guessed that his request would be granted within a day. The giant ghost king didn't hesitate at all to send a royal decree directly to Devil Penitentiary. Bai Hao reviled his own clan, treated his father perniciously, and killed his relatives. He is vicious and malevolent, and as such, his rank of prison guard shall be stripped, and he will be incarcerated as a prisoner in Devil Penitentiary. Quite a few people in Giant Ghost City were shocked by the news. After all, Bai Hao had made quite a scene recently, and become very famous. For him to suddenly be imprisoned was a major development. When Madame Kai heard the news, she was ecstatic. Although she ultimately wanted Bai Hao dead, she knew how brutal the legendary Devil Penitentiary was, and was very happy about the situation. Bai Xiaochun had no way of knowing what people were saying about him outside. He was sitting in his room meditating when Deputy Warden Sun Peng and the guards of Cell Block D surrounded his quarters with no warning. Bai Xiaochun was so stunned he didn't know how to react. It felt like his entire world had been turned upside down, to the point where he felt like crying. There must be some mistake, he said in a quavering voice, looking around at all the familiar faces among the guards. The guards of Cell Block D were all on good terms with Bai Xiaochun, and couldn't help but hesitate a bit. The compassion and other mixed emotions in their eyes was clear. However, they didn't dare to defy a royal decree, and could do nothing but sigh and clasp hands toward Bai Xiaochun. We really have no choice in the matter, brother Bai Hao. Just stick it out, Bai Hao. You never know, His Highness the King might cool down after a bit and change his mind. Then, the captain of Squad 9 loudly declared, Don't worry, Bai Hao. You're going to be locked up in Cell Block D, and we're all like a big family. Your title is changing, that's all. We guards will make sure nobody in the cell block causes any problems for you. Clearly, the captain felt very uncomfortable about the situation. The other guards all nodded their heads in agreement. After all, they had all benefited to some extent from the interrogations Bai Xiaochun had performed recently. Coupled with the fact that Bai Xiaochun treated them all well, it ensured that they all liked him. They couldn't defy a royal decree, but could use their authority in Cell Block D to make sure that Bai Xiaochun had it easy. Deputy Warden Sun Peng cleared his throat and said, It's just a change of clothing, Bai Hao. We'll take care of all your daily needs, so there won't be much change in that. In fact, anytime you want to come out and take a walk, just let us know. Bai Xiaochun could see that there was no way out of his situation. He was depressed, but everyone was treating him so well that it warmed his heart. Heaving sighs, he walked along with everyone into the cell block itself. Soon, the grey-robed prisoners in the cell block learned of the matter, and all of them were stunned. As for the important prisoners who Bai Xiaochun had interrogated in the past, many of them were very excited, and were clearly happy to see Bai Hao get his comeuppance. However, their joy didn't last for long. The 10 captains of Cell Block D gave harshly worded warnings to all the prisoners that they weren't to disturb Bai Hao. Then Deputy Warden Sun Peng pointed out that although Bai Hao wasn't an official guard any longer, he was still an inquisitor. At that point, the prisoners abandoned any thoughts of getting revenge. As far as most of them were concerned, it would actually have been better for him to remain as a guard. Back then, he only came into the cell block when on patrol. But now, he would be in there with them all the time. The thought of what that meant if they ended up offending him was terrifying. Most outrageous of all was that the guards didn't seal his cultivation base. That caused each and every one of the prisoners to be filled with incredible anxiety. After a bit of time, the guards said their farewells and left. Crestfallen, Bai Xiaochun found an empty skull cell, walked in, and sat down cross-legged. It all happened so fast, he thought with a long sigh. I was a guard, an inquisitor, and even the #1 Dark Inquisitor. Now I'm just a prisoner. Is it some kind of prank? Giant Ghost King, you bastard, you were the one who saved me to begin with. Why are you causing problems for me now? You're a demigod expert. The 3 great clans are planning a rebellion, so why don't you just go wipe them out? What are you picking on me for, you loser? From what he could tell, he was simply being used as a pawn in whatever game the Giant Ghost King and the 3 great clans were playing. What secret weapon do the 3 great clans have? Damn it, this is between the clans and the king. It doesn't have anything to do with me. Clenching his hands into fists, he looked around and gave a depressed sigh. Thankfully, my bros didn't seal my cultivation base. Otherwise, life would have been really bad. Feeling a bit better because of that fact, he looked over at the cell next to him. In it sat an old man with an expressionless face that featured a prominent red birthmark. Bai Xiaochun remembered this old man from back when the captain had first showed him around. Apparently, he had offended the Giant Ghost King and then ended up being locked away for more than 200 years. Hoping to commiserate with a fellow victim, Bai Xiaochun suddenly said, "Hey there, fellow Taoist. I heard you offended the Giant Ghost King. I guess you and I are in the same boat." The old man didn't react at all. Either he hadn't heard, or was pretending not to. Your cultivation base is sealed, so why are you sitting around meditating all the time? What's the point? Come, let's chat a bit about that damned Giant Ghost King. He's a completely worthless nobody. Bai Xiaochun was actually getting worked up by this point, and had raised his voice quite a bit. Despite that, the old man continued to remain motionless in meditation. Irritated, Bai Xiaochun said, "Fine, just pretend you didn't hear me. What's so amazing about that? It's not like I ever did anything to offend you." Bai Xiaochun had been a bit depressed to begin with, and having this old man completely ignore him didn't help. Snorting coldly, he leaned back up against the cell wall and began to ponder his misery. Sighing, he thought back to how glorious his life had been as a major general on the Great Wall, and how amazing things had been in the river-defying sect. "Oh Junwan, I miss you so much. And you too, Xiaomei." For some reason, he then thought of Mistress Red Dust, and after that, Chen Hichan, and his anger surged. However, sitting around moping wouldn't do any good, so after a bit of time passed, he sat up cross-legged and started thinking about what to do next. Unfortunately, no matter how he pondered the situation, he couldn't come up with any ideas. He had long since tested out his undying hex, and found that it was as useless inside Devil Penitentiary as it had been in the labyrinth near the Great Wall. Now that he was a prisoner, it felt like he was completely and utterly bereft of hope. "Damn that Giant Ghost King," he said through gritted teeth. "And the Bai clan too. They're all worthless nobodies. If the 3 great clans rebel and win, then they'll definitely come and kill me. If they try, then I'll just use my demigod soul to fight my way free." A fierce gleam appeared in his eyes. "If the Giant Ghost King wins, then maybe I'll have a chance of getting out of here. The captain and deputy warden's son might be able to speak up for me, and maybe even Warden Li." Bai Xiaochun massaged the bridge of his nose as he contemplated the 2 possible outcomes. The latter would be the preferred option, whereas the former would make it difficult to avoid death. The idea of dying in a fight got Bai Xiaochun so worked up that he started trembling. "You people are forcing my hand." Taking a deep breath, he closed his eyes to meditate. After all, the best thing to do in this situation was keep himself in top condition, that way he would be ready to make a move at a moment's notice. Time passed. Before long, half a month had gone by. Although Bai Xiaochun remained on alert at all times, nothing much happened. None of the prisoners caused any problems, and the guards would come over on a daily basis to chat and even deliver alcohol and food. Overall, they took good care of him. From Bai Xiaochun's perspective, it really was as if he had just changed accommodations and clothing. The guards would even let him out of the cell block to take a walk whenever he wanted. Generally speaking, his mood was good. Occasionally, the guards would even ask for his help doing some interrogations. After all, he was still the #1 Dark Inquisitor of Devil Penitentiary. During the half a month that passed after Bai Xiaochun went from being a guard to a prisoner, Giant Ghost City changed. No longer was there a brooding pressure weighing down on the city. Instead, it once again became a hustling, bustling place. As far as most people were concerned, all of the rumors that had been spreading were just that. Rumors. The three great clans continued to buy up all of the souls in Giant Ghost City, just like they had been before. Just about everything went back to normal. The only slight difference was that the 10 great marquises of Giant Ghost City, who normally didn't make very many public appearances, were now more commonly seen out in the city. From all outward appearances, there wasn't anything happening in the city that was particularly noteworthy. As for the three great clans, their diva patriarchs all remained in secluded meditation, or at least, that was what the clans stated publicly. In secret, the three diva patriarchs were constantly looking up into the sky, as if they were waiting for something. Another 7 days went by, during which time the people of Giant Ghost City were as busy with their lives as ever. Meanwhile, beneath the moat, in Devil Penitentiary, Bai Xiaochun's life was wonderful. Although he was technically a prisoner, he got special treatment in cell block D, to the point where things were almost exactly the same for him as when he had been a guard. Furthermore, because he was still the number 1 Dark Inquisitor, he continued to get interrogation requests from the other 3 cell blocks. And because he never failed to get information in an interrogation, his fame grew. Currently, the deputy warden and 10 captains from cell block B were clustered around him, leading him in the direction of their cell block. Brother Bai Hao, you're really doing us a favor here. That Lu Shiyu is a treacherous villain, and no matter what methods we use, we simply can't get him to tell us where his loot is stashed. That's right, Brother Bai Hao. If you can get him to talk, we'll give you 30% as your reward. As the group chattered, they cast smiling glances at Bai Xiaochun. By this point, he was extremely famous, and all of the guards knew that getting on his good side was the path to riches and fortune. Bai Xiaochun laughed heartily and said, no problem at all, my brothers. All cell block B has to do is make the request, and I would do everything in my power to help, reward or not. His way with words left the group from cell block B feeling very pleased. Of course, the traditions of Devil Penitentiary had to be maintained. Whether it was for tradition or to maintain a good relationship, they would definitely give him a share no matter how polite he was up front. Before long, they were out of cell block D. Along the way, any guards they happened across would smile and call out a greeting to Bai Xiaochun. And of course, he would always return their greetings. That was simply how Bai Xiaochun did things. When people treated him well, he did the same in return, which always led to people feeling more and more pleased with him. Soon they were in cell block B, which wasn't as big as cell block A, but was larger by far than cell block D. The cells there were also more impressive, and the prisoners inside them were far more brutal than the prisoners in cell block D. Before long, they came to a stop in front of one particular skull cell, whereupon the deputy warden politely said, "Well, here we are. Now it's all up to you, Brother Bai Hao." Nodding, Bai Xiaochun clasped his hands behind his back and looked at the cell, within which was a middle-aged soul cultivator who was none other than Lu Shiyu. Although the man seemed completely at ease, his eyes widened a bit when he saw Bai Xiaochun. After all, he had heard the rumors about the number 1 Dark Inquisitor. Lu Shiyu smiled, and then spoke in a soft voice, "You don't need to waste your time with me. I'm not the tight-lipped kind. However, my cultivation base is ruined, and I'm dying. In fact, I won't last for more than 10 years. Therefore, I only have one demand that I'm sure Devil Penitentiary can meet, considering how powerful you people are. I want 100 beautiful female cultivators per day to keep me comfortable. 10 years from now, when I'm on my deathbed, I'll tell you all the details about my stash of loot." Bai Xiaochun completely ignored his words. After having one of the guards open the cell door, he entered, and black smoke spread out in all directions. The guards of cell block B immediately got excited, whereas Lu Shiyu began to pant. Staring at Bai Xiaochun, he said, "What are you doing? Just wait 10 years. It's not like I'm afraid of dying or something. If you don't give me what I want, then I won't say a word." Clearing his throat, Bai Xiaochun said, "Look, let's talk things over. You've heard of me, right? When I ask questions, I frighten even myself. What's the point of trying to hold out?" Based on what the guards had told him on the way over, this Lu Shiyu had been a city guard before being locked up. In terms of why he had been incarcerated, he had no one to blame for the matter but himself. He was the type of person who would seek revenge over the smallest grievance, and would do everything in his power to kill people he didn't like, then wipe out their entire family. He had also used his authority as a city guard to raid the headquarters of numerous small clans within the city and take away all their wealth. Over the years, he had built up quite an accumulation of fortune. If that were all there were to his vices, he might have been able to get away with it all. After all, his status as a city guard made him difficult to deal with. However, he was also a lecherous fellow, and had taken advantage of numerous women during his so-called raids. A few days before, he had forced himself on a female cultivator who happened to be connected to one of the marquises of Giant Ghost City. That was what ultimately led to his downfall. The enraged marquis had his cultivation base crippled, and instead of killing him, had sent him to be locked up in Devil Penitentiary. In Devil Penitentiary, a gold mine like him was the type that the guards would never let off the hook. However, because he knew he only had a short time to live, he kept making all sorts of demands in exchange for talking. Not only was Cell Block B unable to meet all of his demands, but they didn't want to wait 10 years, and thus, had asked for help from Bai Xiaochun. Backing up a few steps, Lu Shiyu loudly said, "There's no need to talk anything over." Bai Xiaochun sighed. So far, he hadn't run into a single prisoner in Devil Penitentiary who had been willing to cooperate. Shaking his head, he patted his bag of holding in very practiced fashion to produce an aphrodisiac pill. After crushing it, he sent the resulting powder flying over to Lu Shiyu, who couldn't prevent it from entering his mouth and nose. Clasped his hands behind his back, Bai Xiaochun stuck his chin up and proudly said, "The people I interrogate always start out refusing to talk, but after a few hours, they won't shut up." Even as the words left Bai Xiaochun's mouth, Lu Shiyu's eyes flickered angrily, and yet, that didn't match the odd expression that appeared on his face at all. This was a completely different reaction than the prisoners usually gave when Bai Xiaochun performed interrogations. Not only did Lu Shiyu not seem to be in pain at all, but the odd look on his face only lasted for about 10 breaths of time before he looked as normal as he had moments before. His skin was covered with a sheen of sweat, and his eyes were shining as he looked at Bai Xiaochun and said, "What happened? Do you have more?" He actually seemed a bit anxious, like someone might be when they were interrupted right in the middle of something vitally important. "Huh?" Bai Xiaochun blurted, shocked. This was his first time encountering a situation like this. Looking down at some of the residual medicinal powder in his hand, he briefly wondered if he had grabbed the wrong pill. However, after confirming that it was an aphrodisiac pill, he looked back up at Lu Shiyu in disbelief. Eyeing the medicinal power in Bai Xiaochun's hand, Lu Shiyu said, "Give me some more. Hurry up, give me more." Beads of sweat popped out on Bai Xiaochun's forehead at the oddness of the situation. Waving his hand, he sent the residual powder over to Lu Shiyu. Excited, Lu Shiyu leapt to his feet and swallowed the powder. A tremor then ran through him, and he leaned back against the cell wall, closing his eyes as if in intoxication. By this point, Bai Xiaochun's scalp was tingling in shock, and he subconsciously stepped back a few paces, looking at Lu Shiyu as if he were a ghost. What's going on? It's not working? He actually likes it? Bai Xiaochun felt like his world was crumbling around him. Never could he possibly have imagined that someone would actually enjoy the effects of the aphrodisiac pill. He's a complete pervert. Before Bai Xiaochun could recover from his shock, Lu Shiyu shivered. Other than being soaked with sweat, he had now gone completely back to his normal state. Opening his eyes, he shouted, "Do you have more? Give me more." Bai Xiaochun was so shocked by Lu Shiyu's behavior that he was panting. However, his curiosity was also piqued, so he produced another aphrodisiac pill and threw it over. Lu Shiyu grabbed it excitedly and stuffed it into his mouth. Enough time passed for half an incense stick to burn, after which he madly yelled, "Give me another. No, give me 3. A strange expression could be seen on Bai Xiaochun's face as he produced another pill. If Lu Shiyu's cultivation base hadn't been crippled, then he would have attacked Bai Xiaochun to try to take it. At that point, Bai Xiaochun cleared his throat and awkwardly said, Tell me where your loot is stashed, then I'll give you another one." Lu Shiyu said through gritted teeth. He wanted to refuse, but at the moment, the torment he was feeling actually surpassed the torment normally felt by prisoners who ate the pill. Other prisoners felt the pain of being unable to release the pent-up pressure, but because of Lu Shiyu's unique nature, the pain caused by not being able to consume one of the pills was almost impossible to bear. Bai Xiaochun was a bit embarrassed, even he felt that what he was doing was a bit shameless. This was a case of taking advantage of someone against their will, of blackmailing them in a key moment. Blinking a few times, he said, "Just talk, alright? Tell me what you know, and I'll give you another." Lu Shiyu's eyes seemed to contain all of the passion burning in his body, all of the fire that normally pulsed in his chi passageways. In fact, he only managed to hold out for a few breaths of time before telling Bai Xiaochun everything he knew. In turn, Bai Xiaochun didn't go back on his word. After getting the answers to his questions, he gave Lu Shiyu the aphrodisiac pill. After consuming it, his skin flushed bright red, causing Bai Xiaochun to sigh as a strange expression appeared on his face. "This is the first time I've ever seen anything like this. It seems that I need to change my aphrodisiac pill formula a bit." After observing Lu Shiyu for a bit longer, he turned to leave. However, just when he was about to walk out of the cell, Lu Shiyu shouted madly, "Fellow Taoist Bai, wait. I want another one of those medicinal pills. I'm almost there, almost. Just give me another one, alright?" Lu Shiyu was shaking visibly, and his eyes shone with an unprecedented level of desire. The sight left Bai Xiaochun completely shaken. "You already took 3 pills. Are you trying to get yourself killed? Eating too many of the things isn't good for you, just give me 3 more. Fellow Taoist Bai, I beg of you, please just give me 3 more." Lu Shiyu would never have been able to guess that Bai Xiaochun's medicinal pills would have such a profound effect on him. It had started a fire within him that somehow caused signs of recovery to appear within his crippled cultivation base. Ever since his cultivation base had been destroyed, his life had been one of despair, with nothing but death ahead of him. But suddenly, he had hope. How could Bai Xiaochun possibly agree to his request? After all, he was in the wildlands, with no way to concoct more medicine, and no way to replenish his stock. Once he ran out of medicinal pills, it would be difficult to maintain his reputation as a dark inquisitor. No way, giving you so many would be a waste. Fellow Taoist Bai, I know a secret. If you give me 3 of those pills, I'll tell it to you. I'm not interested, Bai Xiaochun replied, not even looking back over his shoulder. With that, he took another step forward, placing him right at the edge of the black mist. As for Lu Shiyu, his eyes were bloodshot with anxiety as he blurted, "It's a secret about Giant Ghost City. Once you know it, you'll be safe from anything in the city under the level of a demigod." When Bai Xiaochun heard that, he stopped in place and looked suspiciously back at Lu Shiyu. When Lu Shiyu saw Bai Xiaochun looking back, his heart flushed with excitement, and he quickly began to reveal the details of the secret. As Bai Xiaochun listened, his heart began to pound, and his eyes became as wide as saucers. "What did you just say? Giant Ghost City actually has hundreds of teleportation portals in it? Most of them lead to other random locations within city limits? But one can teleport you tens of thousands of kilometers away from the city? And some of them are booby-trapped? And there's even a trap golem in one of them? It can only be summoned once, for the time it takes an incense stick to burn, but is as strong as a diva." Bai Xiaochun almost couldn't believe what he was hearing. His heart was pounding, sending blood coursing at top speed through his veins. As Lu Shiyu continued to explain his secret, Bai Xiaochun learned that one of his ancestors had been a famous grandmaster of spell formations, and had been involved in the construction of Giant Ghost City. He had been the one who actually set up the city's defensive spell formations. Of course, he had been forced into the matter by the original Giant Ghost King, and had been given no choice other than to create the city's grand spell formation. However, he knew that because of the secrets he had been privy to, he would most likely be put to death at the end of the project. Therefore, he had created a path of escape for himself. Throughout the construction of Giant Ghost City, he had left all sorts of traps here and there. The grand spell formation itself was riddled with smaller spell formations that not even the original Giant Ghost King had been aware of. Unfortunately, despite concealing the matter from the original Giant Ghost King, he hadn't been able to escape the fate of death in the end. However, the information about the network of smaller spell formations was passed down from generation to generation among his descendants. Although it wasn't clear how he had managed to get the information out, it was never discovered by the original Giant Ghost King, nor by any of the following generations, all the way down to the 9th. Therefore, it was likely that the current 9th generation Giant Ghost King didn't know about it either. Lu Shiyu went on to explain that the reason he had fallen into the practice of plundering the wealth of the smaller clans in the city was for the purpose of being able to activate the spell formations in the city. Although those teleportation formations were ancient, and many had fallen into disrepair, there were some that still worked. However, they needed large amounts of soul medicine to be activated. Unfortunately, Lu Shiyu had never saved up enough soul medicine, which was why he had been unable to escape when the Marquis came for him. Besides, once he activated the spell formations, the Giant Ghost King would never have let him off the hook. The news Bai Xiaochun was learning battered his heart with waves of shock. Of course, at the moment, he had no way to confirm whether or not the information Lu Shiyu was giving him was true or not. If it was, then it was of monumental importance to Bai Xiaochun. This might be my chance to get away. If the Bai clan comes after me, then as long as I can get out of Devil Penitentiary itself, I could use those teleportation portals to make a complete getaway. Heart trembling with excitement, he settled his thoughts and asked for some more details about the teleportation formations and their locations. According to the list he was given, there were a total of 371 formations. After making a complete record of them, Bai Xiaochun tossed 3 aphrodisiac pills over to the anxious Lu Shiyu. As soon as Lu Shiyu had them, he tossed them into his mouth. Moments later, his face turned bright red, and he began to tremble violently as his previously blocked-up qi passageways began to surge on the verge of opening up. At that point, a look of hesitation appeared in Bai Xiaochun's eyes as he considered whether or not to kill the man to keep him quiet. To kill him would be the safest thing. After all, if the information about the teleportation formations was true, then it would be very important that the information not get out, lest it create a major danger for Bai Xiaochun. This guy is vicious and merciless. Definitely a villain. He's also no fool. Considering how important my medicinal pills are to him, and the nature of the things he just told me, there's no way he didn't think about the consequences of his actions. At this point, Bai Xiaochun's eyes flashed. He must be lying. What a treacherous rogue. HMPH. Well, I'm no idiot. Feeling very superior to Lu Shiyu, he waited a bit until the man let out a howl, and then shook back and forth a few times. He was now panting, and covered with both sweat and filth that had been expelled from within him. Soon, his eyes regained their focus, and he looked up at Bai Xiaochun. Chuckling, he said, I never thought I would wake up. I assumed you would kill me after learning my secrets. Of course, he had had no other options. Considering how important the medicinal pills were to him, he had decided to gamble a bit. Besides, if Bai Xiaochun did kill him, he had a secret weapon, something that would make anyone who used the teleportation formations regret doing so. You didn't kill me because you wanted to give me another chance to talk, isn't that right, Bai Hao? Alright, I'll tell you something else. Among the more than 300 spell formations, there are 27 that require a special sealing mark to use. Without the sealing mark, you'll be stuck on the outside. Furthermore, most of the teleportation formations only link to other places in the city. There's only one. That leads to a spot 50,000 kilometers outside of the city. Bai Hao, I know that you betrayed the Bai clan, and were also imprisoned by orders from the giant ghost king. You probably want to get out of here just as much as I do. Therefore, when the time comes, just bring me with you. I can open those 27 locked formations, and can also take you to the one leads outside of the city. Without me, you won't be fleeing anywhere. And by the way, the formation that leads outside of the city is also one of the ones that needs the sealing mark to enter. Lu Shiyu's eyes glittered with deceit. By this point, he was absolutely confident that this Bai Hao would agree to his demands. Then, when the time came to make his actual escape, he would simply kill Bai Hao and escape on his own. I don't have any other choice, he thought, his heart bursting with greed. I need those medicinal pills, and this Bai Hao definitely has more of them in his bag of holding. He's dead one way or another. Of course, Bai Xiaochun was no fool. Considering how Lu Shiyu felt about the aphrodisiac pills, it seemed obvious that he hoped to get free of the cell and kill Bai Xiaochun for his supply. Before doing anything else, though, Bai Xiaochun decided to confirm what he had just heard. You can only get into those formations with a special sealing mark? That's right, Lu Shiyu said with a pleased smile. A strange look could be seen on Bai Xiaochun's face as he proceeded to ask, interesting. So without that sealing mark, I would be stuck on the outside. Presumably there would be some danger involved with trying to break inside? Looking a bit surprised, Lu Shiyu nodded. Bai Xiaochun blinked a few times, and then cautiously asked, and all you have to do is get into the teleportation formation to activate it? What's with all the questions? Lu Shiyu barked, annoyed. Cut the bullcrap. The only way to get into the formations is with the special sealing mark. Once you're inside, of course anyone can activate them. Lu Shiyu was completely convinced that he had pulled the wool over this Bai Hao's eyes. They both had the same goal now, and it only made sense for them to cooperate. If he didn't agree to cooperate, then Lu Shiyu would simply tell his secret to some other people to ruin his plans, assuming he stayed alive long enough. Are you sure about all that? Bai Xiaochun asked, his eyes shining. Absolutely sure, Lu Shiyu replied, frowning. All of a sudden, he felt like something was off about the situation, although he wasn't sure what. After getting his confirmation, Bai Xiaochun smiled. As soon as Lu Shiyu saw that smile, his face fell. Before he could move, Bai Xiaochun waved his hand, sending a blast of wind out that pierced into Lu Shiyu's forehead. Lu Shiyu's eyes went wide with disbelief. Never could he have imagined that, after everything he had just said, Bai Hao would actually kill him. You should have said so earlier. Scared me half to death. Bai Xiaochun flicked his sleeve in distaste. Although a special sealing mark was needed to get into those 27 special spell formations, he could simply do so with his undying hex. If I can get through the Great Wall's spell formation, then there's no need to even mention some little teleportation formations. Sticking his chin up, he looked down at the dead Lu Xiyu and felt very proud of coming out on top in this battle of wits. You can only blame your lack of insight into my abilities. With that, he strutted out of the cell. Although the death of Lu Xiyu caused some complications, it wasn't anything the guards of Cell Block B couldn't take care of. After giving the deputy warden the information regarding the man's loot stash, the fact that he was dead didn't really matter. Of course, the guards weren't stupid. They realized that Bai Xiaochun must have uncovered some other secret and had been forced to silence Lu Xiyu. However, when Bai Xiaochun proposed forgetting about the 30% cut that was owed to him, the guards felt much better. After all, the official rules allowed for the possibility of inquisitors coming across secret information. As long as the inquisitor was well liked by everyone else, it usually wouldn't cause a problem. Bai Xiaochun's way of handling the situation not only forestalled any questions, but also left everyone involved feeling pleased. With a few parting words, Bai Xiaochun left and headed back to Cell Block D in very high spirits. He even decided to contact Zhou Yixing. Earlier, Li Shu had put Devil Penitentiary on complete lockdown, and any attempts to communicate with the outside had been fruitless. But now, his communication went through. Bai Xiaochun quickly relayed a portion of the information about the spell formations, and told Zhou Yixing to go confirm its validity. The next day, he got word back. Zhou Yixing sounded completely incredulous as he said, "The spell formations were all there, my lord. Each and every location was really strange, and in fact, impossible to see into. Not even divine sense would work. In fact, I couldn't actually see any evidence of spell formations. If you hadn't told me of the exact locations, I would never have been able to find them." When Bai Xiaochun heard that, he breathed a sigh of relief, and then excitedly clenched his hands into fists. So it really is true. Ha ha ha. With those teleportation formations, I have a much better chance of getting away. The three great clans and the giant ghost king are currently at each other's throats. Once the chaos breaks out, I definitely won't wait around for the Bai clan to come looking for me. I'll get out of Devil Penitentiary and then make my way to freedom. With that, Bai Xiaochun began to wait patiently. Another half a month went by. Although there were many people in the city who knew that the rebellion was coming, when it actually happened, it still came as a shock. The first astonishing development occurred, not within the three great clans, but rather, in the form of a huge, illusory axe that appeared in the sky above Giant Ghost City. It was fully 30,000 meters tall, and radiated shocking energy. The instant it appeared, it sliced down through the air toward the huge giant ghost statue in the middle of the city. Rumbling sounds filled heaven and earth, and at the same time, a roar of rage erupted from the royal palace at the head of the statue. "How dare you, Nine Serenities King!" Even as the voice echoed out, the illusory image of a giant ghost appeared in the air, which snarled viciously as it unleashed a fist strike to meet the incoming axe. As the two bore down on each other, indescribable power rippled out in all directions, casting all creation into chaos and even ripping the air apart. "I'm only doing this to repay a debt, Giant Ghost King. You're on your own now." Laughter accompanied the axe as it descended, along with intense rumbling sounds. Then, the axe and the giant ghost met. Booming rumbles filled the air. A massive sound that surpassed heavenly thunder rippled out with the power to destroy the heavens and crush the earth. A huge shockwave spread out, crushing everything in its path and even ripping rifts open in the sky. Giant Ghost City was instantly thrown into chaos as countless people looked up to see what was happening. The sight that met their eyes was the shadowy incarnation of a giant ghost being completely destroyed by the huge axe. This, heavens, the Giant Ghost King can't even fight back. This is impossible. To the utter shock of countless onlookers, the huge axe ripped through the illusory giant ghost, and then proceeded onward toward Giant Ghost City. Thankfully, that was when a shimmering shield of light sprang up, which was none other than the city's grand spell formation. Next, an ear-splitting boom spread out, causing cracks to appear all over the spell formation shield. The shield held, and the axe faded away, but then, more laughter rang out. "So, you really are in your decay period, Giant Ghost King. Well, whether or not you survive this calamity has nothing to with me. Farewell." The mad laughter then slowly faded away into nothing. Everyone who had witnessed this scene was completely shaken, and suddenly realized that the rebellion was taking place on this very day. It was at that point that 6 beams of light suddenly shot into the air above the city. Within those beams of light were the 6 of the 10 heavenly marquises that ruled Giant Ghost City. Those marquises each controlled one of the 10 armies stationed in the city. As for the remaining 4 heavenly marquises, they did nothing. Today is the day you meet your end, Giant Ghost King. Die, Giant Ghost King. Of the 6 heavenly marquises, none were devas, but some of them were half a step into the diva realm. Their combined attack on the royal palace instantly caused Giant Ghost City to tremble, and yet, that was when a roar of rage erupted from one of the statue's hands. Duke Deathcrier appeared, his expression grim as he released a shout as cold as midwinter snow, filled with the power of his diva cultivation base. What gall! However, even as Duke Deathcrier flew out to intercept the 6 heavenly marquises, a sigh could be heard from the giant ghost statue's other hand. Brother Deathcrier, said a sad voice, I know we've been friends for years, but, now we're enemies. A blurry figure suddenly appeared on the statue's other hand. It was none other than one of Giant Ghost City's 5 dukes. Duke Netherworld, you're also betraying His Highness the King, Netherworld? Killing intent instantly appeared in Duke Deathcrier's eyes as he shifted targets. It was in this moment that the 3 great clans burst into action. 3 shocking beams of light rose up into the air, which then shot toward the giant ghost statue. Within those beams of light were the 3 diva patriarchs of the 3 clans. The reason why the 3 patriarchs hadn't made a move until now was because they were waiting for the exploratory attack made by the 9 Serenities King. Now that they were convinced that the giant ghost king was weak, they were eager to attack. The 3 of them shot through the air at shocking speed, joining the 6 heavenly marquises to attack the royal palace. All of this was merely a prelude to the chaos to come. Of the 10 marquises, 6 had turned traitor. Of the 5 dukes, 4 were rebelling. It was a situation the likes of which did not occur often in the wildlands. In fact, it was an extremely rare development. That was especially true considering they were fighting against a king. They were trying to kill a demigod. Your secret is out, Giant Ghost King. The technique you cultivate has a fatal flaw, and although we couldn't calculate the specific date of your decay period, it's now obvious that you're in the middle of it. It's time for you to die. I've been waiting for this day for a long time, Giant Ghost King. Today, you will be killed beyond the shadow of a doubt. The 3 diva patriarchs shot like sharp blades through the air, leaving streaks of light behind them as they slammed into the giant ghost statue. Boom! The giant ghost statue simply couldn't withstand the force of the blow. Cracks spread out across its surface, and the royal palace began to collapse. As the rubble and dust spread out, a tall, muscular man appeared, wearing a violet robe embroidered with a serpentine dragon, and a kingly crown. He appeared to be middle-aged, and was somehow threatening without being angry. He also radiated an aura that was completely shocking. He was none other than the giant ghost king. So, you've finally made your move, he said as he floated up into the air, looking around at the 3 diva patriarchs and the 6 heavenly marquises. He didn't seem nervous at all, and in fact, was even smiling. Furthermore, that smile seemed to contain a profound level of self-confidence. I wasn't sure exactly who among you would be joining this rebellion, so I was waiting for you to make the first move before wiping you out. Now, the moment has arrived, and unfortunately for you people, I'm not done playing my little game. From the giant ghost king's statement, it was obvious how confident he was, and it caused the 3 diva patriarchs' faces to flicker. However, there was no going back now. Gritting their teeth, they began to perform incantation gestures. Wood dimension. Killing seal, they roared in unison. Instantly, a huge vortex sprang into being, filled with countless souls. All of them were wood-type souls, and as they descended, they began to explode, creating something like a huge sealing mark that covered all of Giant Ghost City and filled it with the power of the element of wood. As soon as the energy rolling off of the Giant Ghost King encountered that wood-type power, it melted as quickly as a snowflake fallen into boiling water. Thus, this episode comes to an end. Remember to like and comment so we can discuss the story together. Until we meet again in the next chapters.